Indeed, the most important things we learned in life, about life and death, we learned from our mom. Looking back through these last few weeks has been such an emotional roller coaster. But one thing stands out, and that is how much God's graces surrounded my mom and all of us until the moment of her last breath. What a testament to the graceful way she lived her life every day. Just as we have been taught by our faith, we need to be prepared every day to meet our Lord, because we know not the hour of our death. We had no idea that Mom's inevitable death was coming when she entered the hospital a month ago. We thought her recovery from the open heart surgery might be slow, but we were certain that she would recover. When it was finally obvious to us that she might not make it, God blessed us all with acceptance and the opportunity to know when it was time to bring her home to the house that she had lived in and loved for 49 years. Watching the constant stream of friends and family come to pay homage to my mom was unbelievable. She had no issues left unresolved with anyone. And everyone that spoke to her showered her with words of gratitude and love about the ways my mom had blessed each and every life that she touched. The fan club, I called it, and it is here today. It's so evident. And I think because of her unmatched gift of correspondence with everyone through the thousands of handwritten cards throughout the years, very few, if any, seem to lose touch with our mom no matter how far away we moved. Many still treasure those cards, and many others reported never having heard anything but kind words come out of her mouth. The blessing that all four of her children, along with our dad, surrounded her bedside the last few days she was with us was such a beautiful gift to us all. That time is forever imprinted into all our hearts and souls. God gave us a few special moments where he gave her the energy to speak to us when she hadn't been speaking. She shared that she was going to heaven and wished to take us with her. She said that at her funeral, she wanted joy, joy, joy. I'm not complying right now. She told us we were beautiful, but there was nothing more beautiful than her youthful, angelic face in those hours. Caring for her body when she could no longer was such a privilege. She wanted so little. A head massage or an occasional back massage brought her moments of pleasure and relief. All we lived for in those moments was her comfort and happiness and the opportunity to hold her hand. We couldn't get enough. What she waited for, I'm sure, was to make sure that those of us that needed to see her got our chance. And to those who were with her in prayer and spirit, she was greatly comforted and felt your love and presence. But looking back more than anything, she wanted to hold the hand of the love of her life on earth, Tony, as she reached to heaven to take the hands of her most loving God the Father and Mother Mary. She quietly breathed her last breath at 3:15, Friday the 13th, still holding my dad's hand as she had throughout the night. Letting go of her is overwhelming because she is woven into the fabric of who we all are. But it's remembering the countless stories and the beauty of who she was that keeps us smiling and grateful for the times we had. Being by her side those last few hours of her life is something we will never forget or be able to put words to, except to say God's graces and love surround us then as they do now. May my mom's life make us all appreciate those we love so much more, and live each day as if it were our last, loving everyone with our whole heart, with kind words and actions. We love you, Mom.
When I was in the 5th grade, my class compiled a book of our favorite quotes from our fathers. Like the other kids in my class, I asked my dad his favorite quote. This is what he gave me. My fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. A quote by John F. Kennedy. In my 5th grade mind, that quote was too presidential, too serious, too intellectual. All words that could also describe my dad, but also words that seemed too grown up for a 10 or 11-year-old. So I asked him for another one, something more lighthearted, and one that the other 5th graders could understand. He said, "Life is like a box of chocolates you're going to get." The famous quote from Forrest Gump. Silly, straightforward, and simple. Also the words that would describe my dad. In the past 16 months, I watched my dad live with cancer. Those quotes defined who he was. And the more I reflected on his life, I found that those quotes were who he was. Born on October 28, 1956, to Ed and Peggy Payton, a larger-than-life engineer and his kind and gentle wife, my dad was the oldest of 4 children. He entered the world with a big old mind, full of all kinds of amazing things and a love of knowledge. He grew up all over the United States, Kansas, Texas, Indiana, Washington, and even spent a few early years in Germany. His childhood was filled with books and baseball games, tennis, and bike rides. And as we have all heard multiple times, our dad was especially gifted at picking strawberries as a child, far superior to the picking of his siblings, Dave, Cheryl, and Donna. He told us stories about how he only ever received coloring books for Christmas and one time had a banana squished on his head. He became an Eagle Scout and never let us forget that he was a part of the Scouts of 67 from Port Arthur. Perhaps those were the days he developed his irrational fear of knives. College took my dad to the University of Washington. A proud Husky always, my dad pursued his degree in engineering there and adopted the famous name of Captain Video, as you could always find him glued to the TV. Some things never change. After college, my dad started his career where he worked in the pipeline industry for 40 years. He loved his job. We just didn't know how much until the day he was waiting to have brain surgery and participating in conference calls from his hospital bed. He was proud to be a part of a team who was working to find green energy. Soon after he started his career, he met my mom, that Spitfire redhead, by a stroke of good luck and with the help of Aunt Lori and Uncle Bob, and started a family. My mom was the social butterfly that brought common sense and an unending love into my dad's world. Together they faced giants, both big and small, and grew to be a pretty remarkable team. Growing up with my dad was like growing up with a slightly more mature big brother. He would be the first to wrestle, the first to eat all the cookies, and the first to get dressed for any of the sports games we had to attend. He lived in the present moment, and while some days that was probably not, for my mom, the most ideal as she tried to raise her 4 children and him, I think he got that part of life just right. He took it as it came, like a box of chocolates. He wore gecko pants and drank way too many cans of Coke, spent many hours at the counter trying to help me understand math, and made a perfect bowl of top ramen. I could hardly turn in a paper without his editing it and adding elaborate words I would have never come up with on my own. And all our bumps and bruises went to Dad, because after all, he was medically trained. Our dad loved video games, war games, card games, and board games. He was a kid at heart. And sometimes the neighbors would come to the door not to ask if one of us could play, but if Steve could play. My dad was goofy and would dance around the kitchen. He would sing songs to the dishes and giggle in a way that showed his childlike side. I miss his giggle. And the smirk he made when he knew he shouldn't laugh, but he was going to anyway. My dad loved sports. He watched them all religiously: soccer, baseball, football, basketball. He passed that love on to the boys and me. There's nothing quite like a come-from-behind win, the beauty of a good play, or the story of a remarkable player or team. He once said that he wanted to keep fighting until he could no longer watch sports every day. It may be coincidence, but professional sports were not played for 5 straight months after the week he died. And while they may never be the same for the world again, they will never be the same for each of us. Now they're where we go to be with Dad. We have all had good memories with our dad over the years because overall he was a good man. But my favorite memories with my dad were the ones that came the last 16 months of his life. That's the dad that I'm going to remember the most. The guy who drove himself to the doctor to be diagnosed with a brain tumor. Brave. The one who never once asked, why me? Selfless. The dad who faced every step of the way with joy and courage. Unshakable. The one who, as tears streamed down my face, reminded me continuously that everything would be okay. Steadfast. The dad who let us walk every step of the journey right alongside him. Humble. I will treasure doctor's visits and family dinners and days of playing Catan. I hold on to days where I got to shave his head, help him to walk, and still sing right alongside him. The sicker he got, the bigger his smile and the tighter his hugs. I could have sat beside him and listened to his books forever, even if I had no idea what they were about. In the last 16 months of his life, he could have just died, but instead he chose to live. We painted toy soldiers, watched The Masked Singer, and danced in the kitchen with our bowls of ice cream, and we made the most of the time we were given. I wish no one the pain of cancer, but I wish everyone those kinds of days. My dad taught me a few things here and there, although I still hate playing softball. But what he taught me most, he did not have to say in a brainy quote. He did not have to say it at all, because he showed me. Life truly is like a box of chocolates, and some would say, my dad got the bum end of the box. And maybe he did. But here's the thing. The way he saw it, good or bad, it did not matter. It was what he was given, and he was going to face it with grace. He may not have asked what he could do for his country in those moments, but he did ask what he could do for his family. And I will be forever grateful for what he did for us, for the journey of a lifetime that he gave us. In 5th grade, I did not understand the greatness of my dad. Presidential, serious, intellectual, silly, straightforward, simple, brave, selfless, unshakable, steadfast, humble. And honestly, 16 months ago, I did not really understand it either. But by March 6, 2020, I knew that greatness fully. And I will live every day striving for that greatness. We love you, Dad. We miss you. And we'll see you somewhere beyond the sea.
It's funny. You would think that 5 months is long enough to sit down and write something, but every time I did, it was too hard, so I didn't do it. I just didn't write anything. But I want to tell you guys a quick story real quick. Back in 8th grade, my dad chaperoned a trip to Yosemite, and the last day we were there, we were going on the Yosemite Falls hike, and it was supposed to be the biggest hike that we were going on. And we got halfway through, and my dad started to get tired, right? But he was so excited, so he's like, it's fine, we'll just keep going. Like, we can do this, it's okay. Then we get a little bit farther up, and we're about like maybe 30 minutes from the peak of Yosemite. And Dad stops, and he's like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I have to stop. I'll wait for you guys here. Like, I can't go any farther. And I remember thinking and talking to my dad that day and saying, hey, Dad, like, I don't want to go any farther without you. Like, I don't want to do this without you. I want to stop right here with you. And I remember him telling me, he's all, I know you don't want to, but it's going to be beautiful, and you need to keep going. You need to see what else is out there. You need to see how beautiful it is when you get to the top. So reluctantly, I decided that I would keep going, and I finished that hike, and I came back down, and I brought a rock to my dad, and I gave it to him. And he was like, I told you I'd be right here when you got back, right? I'm going to be right here with you. Fast forward to the last real conversation I had with my dad. And I was trying to be like strong for him and just like check in with him. And I was like, how are you doing? Like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, Robbie, I'm okay. I'm ready. Like, I'm ready. I'm okay. And I remember just telling him, but Dad, I'm not ready. I'm not okay. And he goes, I know you're not okay, but you will be. I'd be lying today if I stood up here and told you guys I'm okay. But I know I will be. Thank you.